Welcome to the lecture on Module 5 Wired LANs. That is, we are going to discuss about Ethernet. We have already discussed about general issues related to the data link layer in the previous chapters. Over the few decades, many wired LAN protocol exist, but only the Ethernet technology survived today. So in this chapter, we are going to study about Ethernet technology. So first we'll see about what is Ethernet protocol. So previously we have seen that TCP/IP protocol suite does not define any protocol for data link or to the physical layer. That is, TCP/IP accept any protocol at these two layers that can provide services to the network layer. So we have seen LAN, local area network, AC computer network that is designed for a limited geometric area such as building or campus. So LAN can be used as an isolated network to connect computers in the organization for the sole purpose of sharing the resources. LANs used a media access method to solve the problem of sharing the medium. The Ethernet uses the CSMA CD approach, that is, carrier sense multiple access with collision detection. Although every LAN except Ethernet has disappeared from the marketplace because Ethernet was able to update itself to meet the need of the time. So first we will discuss about IEEE Project 802. So first we need to discuss about this IEEE standard that we will often encounter in our real life. In 1985, the Computer Society of IEEE standard a project called Project 802 to set standards to enable intercommunication among the equipments from a variety of manufacturers. Project 802 does not seek to replace any part of the OSI model or TCP/IP protocol suite. Instead, it is a way of specifying the functions of physical layer and the data link layer of major LAN protocols. So here, this figure shows the relationship of the 802 standard to the TCP/IP protocol suite. So this is the TCP/IP protocol suite and this is the IEEE standard. So here IEEE has subdivided the data link layer into two. That is, into a logic link control and into a media access control. So this is this one. So IEEE has created several physical standards for different LAN, different physical layer standards for different LAN protocols. So here the logic link control or LLC. This data link control handles framing, flow control, error control. In IEEE Project 802, flow control, error control and part of the framing duties are collected into one sub-layer called as logic link control. So framing is handled in both LLC sub-layer and also in the MAC sub-layer. The LLC provide a single link layer control protocol for all IEEE LANs. The next one is this one, media access control. So previously we have discussed about different access method including random access, controlled access and channelization. The IEEE Project 802 has created a sublayer called media access control that defines the specific access method for each LAN that is implemented in this layer. The Ethernet evolution. The Ethernet LAN was developed in 1970s by Robert Metcalfe and David Box. Since then, it has gone through 4 generations, that is standard Ethernet 10 Mbps per second, fast Ethernet 100 Mbps and gigabit Ethernet 1 GB per second and 10 gigabit Ethernet that is 10 GB per second. So next we will discuss about each of these one by one. So first we will discuss about standard Ethernet. We are going to refer the original Ethernet technology with the data rate of 10 Mbps per second as the standard Ethernet. Now we'll see what are the characteristics of this standard Ethernet. The first characteristic is it is connectionless and unreliable service. That is, Ethernet provide a connectionless service, which means each frame sent is independent of the previous or the next frame. Frame has no connection establishment or connection termination phase. The sender sends a frame whenever it has. The receiver may or may not be ready to receive it. The sender may overwhelm the receiver with frames, which may result in dropping the frames. So, if a frame drops, the sender will not know about it. Since IP, which is using the services of Ethernet, is also connectionless, it will not know about it earlier. So, if the transport layer is also uses a connectionless protocol such as UDP, the frame is lost, and the other side may not come. The frame is lost, and the other side may only come from the application layer. That is, application layer will come to know that the frame has lost. However, if the transport layer uses TCP, the sender TCP does not receive acknowledgement for the segment and send it again. So if the transport layer uses TCP protocol, then it will easily identify that the frame is lost during the transmission. So Ethernet is also unreliable like IP and UDP. If a frame is corrupted during transmission and the receiver find out about the corruption, which has a high level of probability of happening because of CRC32, the receiver drop the frame silently. So it is the duty of high level protocol to find about it. Next we will see about Ethernet frame structure. So the first field is preamble. The field contains 7 bytes or 56 bits of alternating zeros and ones that alert the receiver of the system about the coming frame and enable it to synchronize its clock if it is out of synchronization. The next field is as SFD, that is start frame delimiter. This field is 1 byte, that is the value is 10101011. The signals that beginning of the frame. It is a field signals the beginning of the frame. The SFD warns the station or stations that this is the last chance for synchronization. The last 2 bits are 11 and alert the receiver that next field is the destination address. So the next field is destination address. This field is of 6 bytes and contain the link layer address of the destination station or stations to receive the packets. The next field is source address. This field is also 6 bytes and contain the link layer address of the sender of the packet. The next field is type. This field defines the upper layer protocol whose packet is encapsulated in the frame. This protocol can be IP, ARP and so on. The next field is data field. This field carries the data encapsulated from the upper layer protocol. It will have a minimum payload length of 46 and maximum payload of 150 bytes. So if the data coming from the upper layer, if it is more than 1500 bytes, it should be fragmented and encapsulated in more than one frame. And if it is less than 46 bytes, it need to be padded with extra zeros. The last field is CRC. It contains error detection information. In this case, we are using CRC32. So this is calculated over address type and data field. And if the receiver calculates CRC and find it is not 0, that indicates that the frame is corrupted during transmission and it will discard the frame. Next is frame length. As we have seen, Ethernet will impose restriction on both the minimum and maximum length of the frame. The minimum length restriction is required for the correct operation of CSMA CD. An Ethernet frame need to have a maximum length of 512 bits or 64 bytes. Part of this length is header and trailer. We will compute that as 18 bytes of header and trailer. That is, it is 6 byte of source address, 6 byte of destination address and 2 bytes of length and 4 bytes of CRC. So total it is 18 bytes. And here basically this preamble is not considered as part of this because this will be added by the physical layer. Now by considering that the minimum length of the data from upper layer is total, it is given as 64. Look, total it is given as we need to have minimum length of 64 byte. Out of 64 byte, 18 bytes are used for the header and trailer. So when you will subtract 64 minus 18, total 46 bytes of data. So if the upper layer packet is less than 46 bytes, padding is added to make up the difference. Similarly, to find the maximum length of the frame, that is maximum length is given as 1518 bytes. So if we subtract the 18 bytes of header and trailer, the maximum length of the payload will become 1500. If the frame size is more than 1500, then it will be fragmented. Next is addressing. Each station in an Ethernet network has its own network interface card, that is NIC. This NIC fits inside the station and provides the station with a link layer address. The Ethernet address is 6 bytes or 48 bits, normally written in the hexadecimal notation with a column between the bytes. So this is an example for Ethernet address. So the way the address are sent out to the output line is different from the way they have written in decimal notation. The transmission is always from left to right, byte by byte. However, for each of the byte, the least significant bit will be sent first and then the most significant bit. So this is an example that will show how this address is sent to the outline. So here the address is written in hexadecimal notation, that is 4720 and 1B2E08EE. So first each of these is written in binary. Look how it is transmitted. Transmission is left to right. So first byte sent is this one. But inside these bits will not be sent in the same order. It will be sent from right to left. Means at first the least significant bit is sent and at the last most significant bit is sent. So during transmission it is 11. Look, 1110010 it is sent. Similarly, by taking the second bit also, if you consider the second byte, it also transmitted. Look from here 00001000 like this. So this is how it is same for all this. So this is how data is sent. So next we'll see what is unicast, multicast and broadcast addresses. A source is always a unicast address, that is the frame comes from only one station. The destination address, however, it will be unicast or multicast or broadcast. So this figure will show how to distinguish between unicast address from the multicast address. That is, if the least significant bit of the first byte in the destination address is 0, the address is unicast. Otherwise, it will be considered as multicast. So the example will show the define the type of following destination address. So here, 3 different addresses are given. We have to identify whether it is a unicast address, multicast address or broadcast address. To find the type of the address, we have to look into the second digit from the left. That is, we have to start from left. We have to consider the second digit, that is second digit. If it is even, the address is unicast. If the second digit is odd, then it is multicast, and if that digit is F, the address is broadcast. So in this example you can see, in the first example, second digit is A. A is a binary. A in binary is 1010, which is even number. So this is a unicast address. The second example, second digit is 7. In binary it is 0111, which is a odd number. So this is a multicast address. And C, in that second digit is F, which will indicate that it is a broadcast address. So always remember, the transmission in the standard Ethernet is always broadcast, no matter if the intention is unicast, multicast or broadcast. So here the question is, how actually unicast, multicast and broadcast transmissions are distinguished from each other. In a unicast transmission, all stations will receive the frame. The intended recipient will keep and handle the frame, rest will be discarded. In multicast transmission, all stations will receive the frame. The station that are member of the group will keep and handle it. The rest will discard it. In the broadcast transmission, all stations will receive the frame and all stations will keep except the sender and handles it. So here, this figure is an example for standard Ethernet. The standard Ethernet will choose as CSMA CD with one persistent method. Assume that here station A has frame to send to station D. So what station A will do is, it must check whether any other station is sending, that is carrier sends. So first A will measure the level of energy on the medium. If there is no signal energy in the medium, it means that no station is sending. So A will interpret this situation as medium is idle. Then it will start sending the frames. On the other hand, if the signal level is not a 0, it means that medium is being used by another station. So A starts continuously monitoring the medium until it will find idle for 100 microsecond. It then starts sending the frame. However, station A need to keep a copy of the frame in its buffer until it is sure that there is no collision. So when station is sure of this subject we are going to discuss later. The medium census does not stop after station A has started sending the frames. So station A need to send and receive continuously. The next one is efficiency of standard Ethernet. The efficiency of the standard Ethernet is defined as the ratio of time used by a station to send the data to the time the medium is occupied by the station. The practical efficiency of standard Ethernet has been measured as efficiency is equal to 1 by 1 plus 6.4 into A, where A is the number of frames that can fit on the medium, that is A is equal to propagation delay by transmission delay. Just consider the example. In the standard Ethernet with the transmission rate of 10 megabits per second, we assume that the length of the medium is 2500 meters and size of the frame is 512 bits. The propagation speed of the signal in the cable is normally 2 into 10 power 8. So here we have to find the efficiency. To find the efficiency, first we have to calculate what is A. So to calculate A efficiency, we need A. To calculate A, what we need is the propagation delay and the transmission delay. So this propagation delay can be calculated as length of the medium divided by the propagation speed of the signal, that is 2500 divided by 2 into 10 power 8. That we will get as 12.5 microseconds. Then we have to calculate transmission delay. Transmission delay can be calculated as the size of the frame divided by the transmission rate. Size of the frame is 512 divided by transmission rate is 10 megabits per second. What we will get is 51.2 microsecond. Now A can be calculated as propagation delay, that is 12.5 microsecond, divided by transmission delay, that is 51.2 microseconds. So what value of A we will get is 0.24. Now by substituting A value, that is 0.24, we will get the efficiency as 39%. The next figure will show the standard Ethernet implementations. So standard Ethernet defines several implementations, but only 4 of them will become popular in 1980s. That schemas are shown over here. So here all stations will implement, all standard implements uses digital signaling, that is baseband at 10 Mbps per second. At the receivers, at the sender, the data are converted into the digital signal using Manchester schema, and again at the receiver the signal is interpreted as Manchester and decoded into the data. This figure will show that. Next we'll see about 10^5 or thick Ethernet. The first implementation is called as 10^5 or thick Ethernet or ThickNet. The nickname was actually derived from the size of the cable, which is roughly the size of the garden hose, or too steep to bend with your hands. 10^5 was the first Ethernet specification to use bus topology with an external transceiver connected via a tape to the thick coaxial cable. So here you can see this is the thick coaxial cable, this is the transceiver, and transceiver cable that will connect the station into the transceiver. So this transceiver is responsible for transmitting, receiving and detecting collisions. The transceiver is connected to the station via the transceiver cable that provides separate path for sending and receiving. This means that the collision can only happens in the coaxial cable, because in the coaxial cable multiple stations will try to send the data. The maximum length of the coaxial cable must not exceed 500 meters. Otherwise there is excessive degradation of the signal. And here you can see this is 10^5. 10 is 10 Mbps per second capacity, and this is base stand for this will allow baseband transmission, and 5 is the maximum length of the cable, that is 500 meter, that is represented as 5. And the next one is 10^2, or which is called as thin Ethernet. 10^2 also uses a bus topology, but the cable is much thinner and more flexible. The cable can be bent to pass very close to the station. In this case, the transceiver is normally the part of network interface card which is installed inside the station. So here you can see this is 10^2. 10 Mbps per second baseband transmission. 2 stand for 185 meter, which is nearly equal to 200. So it is represented as 2. So here the collision may occur in the thin coaxial cable. The implementation is more cost effective than 10^5 because thin coaxial cable is less expensive than thick coaxial, and the T-connects are more cheaper than the taps. So installation is simpler because thin coaxial cable is very flexible, but the length of each segment cannot exceed 185 meter or close to 200 meter due to the high level of attenuation in the thin coaxial cable. The next one is 10^T, or it is called as twisted pair Ethernet. This 10^T uses a physical star topology. The stations are connected to a hub via 2 pairs of twisted cables. Here, 2 pairs of twisted cable will create 2 different paths, one for sending, other one for receiving between the station and the hub. Any collision may happen in the hub. So when we compare this with 10 base 5 or 10 base 2, we can see that hub actually replaces the coaxial cable as far as collision is concerned. The maximum length of the twisted cable here is defined as 100 meter to minimize the effect of attenuation in the twisted cable. The next one is 10 base F or fiber Ethernet. So there are different type of optical fibers 10 Mbps Ethernet. So the most commonly it is called as 10 base F. It will always uses a star topology to connect stations into the hub. So stations are connected to the hub using two fiber optical cables as shown in the figure. So it is 10 base F, 10 Mbps per second, baseband transmission. F stand for fiber. Changes in the standard. So before we will go for the discussion about high rate Ethernet protocol, we need to discuss about the changes that occur to the 10 Mbps per second standard Ethernet. These changes opened the new road to the evolution of Ethernet to become compatible with other high data rate LANs. So first we'll see about bridged Ethernet. The first step in Ethernet evolution was the division of LAN by bridges. Bridges have basically two effects on the Ethernet LAN, that is, they raise the bandwidth and they separate collision domains. How it will raise the bandwidth? You just consider an unbridged Ethernet network. The capacity, the total capacity, for example, here consider it as 10 Mbps, is shared among all the stations with a frame to send. So the station share the bandwidth of the network. If only one station has frame to send, it benefits from the total capacity, that is 10 Mbps. But if more than one station need to use the network, the capacity of the channel is shared. For example, if two stations have lot of frame to send, they probably alternate the usage of the channel. When one station is sending, other stations are refrained from sending. So we can say that in this case, each station on an average will have the rate of 5 Mbps. The next example is using the bridges. A bridge divides the network into two or more network. In this case, it is two network. Bandwidth of each station is independent. For example, a network with 12 stations, here it is divided into two networks, 6 stations each. So each will have 6 stations. Now each network has the capacity of 10 Mbps per second. So the 10 Mbps capacity in each segment is now shared between 6 stations, not between 12 stations. In a network with a heavy load, each station theoretically is offered 10 by 7 Mbps per second instead of 10 by 12 Mbps per second. It is 10 by 7, because in each network we are considering 6 stations, but actually it is made up of 7 because bridge also act as a station in each of the segments. So total it is considered as 7. So capacity is 10 by 7. Separating collision domain. Another advantage of using the bridge is the separation of collision domain. So here this figure will show how the collision domains collision domain for an unbridged and for a bridged network. You can see that the collision domain is more smaller and the probability of collision is reduced in the bridged network. Without bridging, 12 stations contend for the access in the medium. With bridging, only 3 stations contend for access of the medium. Next is switched Ethernet. The idea of bridged LAN can be extended to switched LAN. instead of having 2 or 4 networks, why not we have N network, where N is the number of stations on the LAN. In the other word, if we can have multiple port bridge, why not have N port switch? Why cannot we switch from a bridge into a switch? In this way, the bandwidth is shared only between the station and the switch. In addition, collision domain will get divided into N domains. A layer 2 switch is an N port bridge with additional sophistication that allow faster handling of the packet. Evolution from a bridge Ethernet to a switched Ethernet was the first step that opens the way even to the faster Ethernet. So in the figure you can see individual station is considered as a separate domain. So collision domain is also reduced, and here we have used a switch instead of bridge. So full duplex Ethernet. One of the limitation of 10 base 5 and 10 base 2 is that communication is half duplex. A station can either send or receive but may not do both at the same time. The next step is in the evolution was to move from switched Ethernet to a full duplex switched Ethernet. The full duplex mode increases capacity of each domain from 10 to 20 Mbps. So figure will show a switched Ethernet in full duplex mode. So here, instead of using one link between the station and switch, the configuration uses two links. One is to transmit, other is to receive. Next we'll see about faster Ethernet. In the 1990s, some LAN technologies with a transmission rate higher than 10 Mbps per second, such as FTDI and fiber channels, appeared on the market. If the standard Ethernet wants to survive, it had to compete with these technologies. So Ethernet made a big jump by increasing the transmission rate to 100 Mbps, and the new generation was called as faster Ethernet. The goal of faster Ethernet can be summarized as below. Upgrade the data rate to 100 Mbps, make it compatible with the standard Ethernet, keep the same 48-bit address, keep the same frame format. The access method. The proper operation of GSMA CD depends upon the transmission rate, the maximum size of the frame, and the maximum network length. So if you want to keep the maximum size of the frame, the maximum length of the network should be changed. The faster Ethernet came with two solutions for this problem. That is, the first solution was to totally drop the bus topology and uses passive hub and star topology, but make the maximum size of the network 250 meters instead of 2500 meters as in the standard Ethernet. The second solution is to use a link layer switch with a buffer to store frames and a half duplex connection to each host to make the transmission media private for each host. The auto negotiation is the new feature which is added into the fast Ethernet. It allows a station or a hub a range of capabilities. That is, auto negotiation allows two devices to negotiate the mode or data rate of operation. It was designed particularly to allow incompatible devices to connect one another. For example, a device with maximum data rate of 10 Mbps per second can communicate with a device with 100 Mbps data rate. It was designed particularly for these purposes to allow incompatible devices to connect each other. That is, for example, as I told before, a device with maximum capacity of 100 Mbps can communicate with a device with 100 Mbps capacity, and also to allow one device to have multiple capabilities, to allow a station to check hub capabilities. The next one is physical layer. To be able to handle 100 Mbps data rate, several changes need to be made at the physical layer. The first change is in the topology. Fast Ethernet is designed to connect two or more stations. If there are only two stations, they can connect using point-to-point network. Three or more stations need to be connected in a star topology with hub or switch at the center. So the table will show the summary of Fast Ethernet implementation. Fast Ethernet implementation at the physical layer can be categorized into 2-wire or 4-wire. The 2-wire implementation can uses either shielded twisted pair STP, which is called as 100 base TX, or fiber optic cable, which is also called as 100 base FX. The 4-wire implementation is designed only for the unshielded twisted pair UTP, which is called as 100 base T4. This table will summarize the implementation of Fast Ethernet. Next we'll see the encoding. Manchester encoding needs a 200 megabud bandwidth for the data rate of 100 Mbps, which make it unsuitable for mediums such as twisted pair cable. For this reason, the Fast Ethernet designers sought some alternate encoding and decoding schemas. So 100 base TX uses two pair of twisted pair cables. For this implementation, MLT3 schema was selected since it has good bandwidth performance. The 100 base FX uses two pair of optical cables. Optical fibers can easily handle high bandwidth requirement by using simple encoding schemas. The designer of 100 FX selected NRZI encoding schema for this implementation. The next one is 100 base TX network can provide a data rate of 100 Mbps, but it requires the use of category 5 UTP or STP cable. A new standard called as 100 base T4 was designed to use category 3 or higher UTP. The implementation uses 4 pair of UTP for transmitting 100 Mbps. Encoding decoding is 100 base T4 is more complicated as this implementation uses category 3 UTP. Each twisted pair cannot easily handle more than 25 megabit. The Gigabit Ethernet. The need for an even higher data rate resulted in the design of Gigabit Ethernet protocol, that is 1000 Mbps capacity. The goal of the Gigabit Ethernet was to upgrade the data rate to 1 gigabits per second, but keep the address length, the frame format, and the maximum frame length the same. So the goal can be summarized as upgrade the data rate to 1 gigabits per second, make it compatible with the standard or fast Ethernet, use the same 48-bit address, use the same frame format, keep the same minimum and maximum frame length, support auto negotiation or define in as it is defined in the faster Ethernet. The MAC sublayer. The main consideration in the evolution of Ethernet was to keep the MAC layer untouched. However, to achieve the data rate of 1 Gbps, this was no longer possible. Gigabit Ethernet has two distinct approaches for medium access, that is half duplex and full duplex mode. Almost all implementation of Gigabit Ethernet follow full duplex approach. So in the full duplex mode, there is a central switch connected to all computers or other switches. In this mode, for each input port, each switch has buffer in which data are stored until they are transmitted. Since this switch uses the destination address of the frame and sends frames out of the port connected to the particular destination, there is no collision. This means that CSMA CD is not used. Lack of collision implies that the maximum length of the cable is determined by the signal attenuation in the cable, not by the collision detection process. Next is half duplex mode. Gigabit Ethernet can also be used in half duplex mode, although it is rare. In this case, a switch can be replaced by a hub which acts as common cable in which a collision might occur. The half duplex approach uses CSMA CD. Here, three methods have been defined, that is traditional, carrier extension and frame bursting. In the traditional approach, we will keep the maximum length of the frame as in the traditional Ethernet, that is 512 bits. However, because of the length of the bit is 1 by 100 shorter than in the gigabit Ethernet, than in the 100 Mbps per second Ethernet, a slot time for gigabit Ethernet is 512 bits into 1 by 1000 microsecond, which is equal to 0.512 microsecond. The reduced slot time means the collision is detected 100 times earlier. This means that the maximum length of the network is 25 meter. The carrier extension. To allow longer network, we increases the minimum frame length. The carrier extension approach defines the maximum length of the frame as 512 bytes. This means that the minimum length is 8 times longer. This method forces a station to add extension bits to any frame that is less than 4096 bits. In this way, the maximum length of the network can be increased 8 times to a length of 200 meter. This allows the length of 100 meter from the hub to the station. The frame bursting. Carrier extension is very inefficient if we have a series of short frames to send. Each frame carrier carries redundant data. To improve efficiency, frame bursting was proposed. Instead of adding an extension to each frame, multiple frames are sent. However, to make these multiple frames look like one frame, padding is added between the frames so that the channel is not idle. Or the method deceives other station into thinking that a very long frame has been transmitted. The physical layer of Gigabit Ethernet. Gigabit Ethernet is designed to connect two or more stations. If there are only two stations, they are connected by means of point to point. If there are three or more stations, need to be connected in the star topology with hub or switch at the center. Implementation. Gigabit Ethernet can be categorized as again either as 2-wired or 4-wired implementation. 2-wired implementation uses fiber optic cable, that is 1000 base SX. SX stand for short wave, or 1000 base LX stand for long wave, or STP 100 base CX. The 4-wire version uses category 5 twisted pair cables, that is 1000 base T. The encoding figure shows the encoding decoding schema for the 4 implementations. So the Gigabit Ethernet cannot use the Manchester encoding schema because it involves a very high bandwidth. The 2-wire implementation uses NRZ schema, but NRZ does not self-synchronization property. It does not have that property. The block encoding prevents long sequence of zeros or ones in the stream, but the resulting stream is 1.25 gigabits per second. So here one wire is used for sending and other wire is used for receiving. Only 2 wires are used. In the 4-wire implementation, it is not possible to have 2 wires for input or 2 wires for output, because each wire would need a capacity of 500 megabits per second, which exceed the capacity for category 5 UTP. As a solution, 4D PAM5 encoding is used to reduce the bandwidth. And the next one is 10 gigabit Ethernet. In the recent years, there has been another look into the Ethernet for the use in the metropolitan area. This idea is to extend the technology, the data rate, and the covering distance so that Ethernet can be used as LAN and MAN. The IEEE committee created 10 gigabit Ethernet and called it as standard 802.3 AE. The goal of 10-bit gigabit Ethernet design can be summarized as upgrading the data rate to 10 gigabits per second, keeping the same frame size, format, and allowing the interconnection of LAN, WAN, and MAN. The standard defines two types of physical layers: LAN physical layer and WAN physical. The first is designed to support existing LAN. The second is actually designed for WAN with a link connection through SONET OC192. The implementation is shown in the table. 10 gigabit Ethernet operate only in full duplex mode, which means that there is no need for contention. CSMA CD is not used in 10 gigabit Ethernet. 4 implementations are most common, that is 10G base SR, LR, 10G base EW, and X4. So this table will summarize the implementation of 10 gigabit Ethernet. So this completes the wired LAN or Ethernet chapter. Thank you.